From League Safe World Headquarters, it's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. With Paul Charchia, Matt Harrison, Christian Peterson, and Brian Johnson.
Welcome to Fantasy Football Almost Daily video podcast. I am Paul Charchia, and my co-hosts today are Brian Johnson and Christian Peterson.
Hello, sir.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Charge.
Week 2 of the preseason is in the books. We're going to talk a little bit about week 3, but also a lot of the big storylines that emerged from over last weekend. Probably none bigger, though, than Deion Lewis, who now, according to the Boston Globe, is going to go under the knife for a second time, clean up on the knee, which is expected to keep him out 6 to 8 weeks. And this all but assures that he will start the season on the PUP list, and that may just be the beginning of a what could be very long, slow start to the season. So, guys, my question to you is, as we'll start here, is he even draftable? So let's start there. Is Deion Lewis draftable in a typically sized league? So you got 15, 16, 17, maybe 18 roster spots. Is Deion Lewis somebody that you're going to put a pick into at all, knowing that you may not get anything out of him until after Halloween?
I don't see how you can, because I don't think we have any assurances that he's even going to be back in the time frame that they've said. You said 6 to 8. I saw 8 to 10. Mm-hmm. That's half the season, and who knows what's happened by then. Maybe James White has just taken the job and run with it. Maybe they've signed somebody else off the street. If you're drafting right now, especially when we don't exactly know what the Patriots are going to do, how they're going to react to this, then no, I don't think he's draftable.
The only way I'd take him is if I did get James White, and then I take Deion Lewis. If I've a spot to take a flyer on somebody, just to kind of handcuff that pass catching role. But yeah. Pretty much a no. The answer is no.
I mean, now you're handcuffing your fifth running back, though, right?
Yeah,
Is that a good use of a roster spot?
Why bother that handcuff? I'd rather have the Alfred Morris handcuff, right?
Yeah.
That's got me crazy upside. So if it's not, if Lewis does miss a couple of months, then comes back, who's to say he's the same dynamic runner we saw last year, which is another problem. So even if he's available, what if he's lost a step? I mean, part of it, he was so elusive, and he had really nice speed, moves, and I worried that a knee injury takes some of that away. Then what? So I'm with you. I just think at this point, Deion Lewis is, it's sad for him. Let me ask you this. Is it as simple as this in terms of James White and LeGarrette Blount? If you're a PPR league, James White's got some value. If you lean more touchdown-oriented, then Blunt's got more value, or is there, some other way to dice that thing up?
I don't think this changes anything for LeGarrette Blount. He wasn't going to catch passes anyways. He was going to be running the ball on first and second down and taking a lot of the touchdowns. So I don't think it changes a thing for him. For White, though, it's huge, specifically in PPR. As you mentioned, last year in the final 6 weeks, he was the number 4 running back.
How about James White?
In a full PPR league. Yeah, he scored 6 touchdowns. Which I did not remember. He averaged 5 catches and almost 50 receiving yards per game. I think that part everybody remembers, but he managed to score 6 times, which is huge. However, I don't know if that's repeatable. That seems a little bit fluky for a receiving back. He had 2 rushing scores, kind of from short yardage too. So I don't. It's a tough call. It definitely brings White onto the radar, especially in PPR leagues. He might be in PPR. He might be a number 2 running back or a guy that you could play in the flex for sure.
Well, here's a good stat. It's only preseason, I know, but Jimmy Garoppolo has targeted a running back or fullback more than 25% of the time that he's played this preseason. So he's checking down a lot. And again, it is only preseason, but he might be looking towards White a lot in these first 4 weeks.
With no receivers there beyond Julian Edelman, and with Edelman, even injured, it's going to be tight ends and running backs. It's going to be a lot of what we saw late last year, where they were throwing a ton to James White.
Gronk and Edelman feel really safe. Although both guys tend to get dinged up, but with that offense is going through those 2 players. Those are both of those guys could be very good.
So before we move on, does this worry you at all about the other Patriots or about the Patriots in general? I talked on the radio show over the weekend about Deion Lewis, some information that I found, how the team was 7-0 when Deion Lewis started last year, and they were putting up 35 points per game. Without him, as soon as he got injured, they dropped over 10 points per game. It was only 24 points per game the rest of the year, and they went 5-4. They were barely above 500. So Deion Lewis was, at least theoretically, a pretty big part of what they were doing last year, and they slowed down after he left. And now we know they're without Tom Brady. They've got Garoppolo for 4 weeks, out for the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And now one of their better offensive playmakers is also out. You've always said what's good for the offense is good for everybody.
That's
so
right, yeah.
I don't know. Are you worried at all about
I am
the rest
worried
of
a
the
little
players?
bit about the offense because right now you don't really have defenses don't have to account for their running backs very much, other than if you see one heading out into the flats, throw a
Better go
linebacker on
cover
that
him,
guy,
yeah.
right? And there's just that many fewer things for defenses to worry about. They're better able to try to take out Gronk, take out Edelman, because there's just one less weapon.
Yeah.
Deion Lewis was a huge weapon, and defenses had to account for it. They don't have to do that now. So I am a little bit worried about how Deion Lewis affects the whole offense, and I think it's a great point.
Do they bring in someone crazy like a Ray Rice or?
Well, let's transition to the next subject.
All right.
Carlos Williams was cut by the Bills. Reportedly, his weight ballooned up to 260 pounds. I mean, we're entering into like tight end territory here, right, for size, and
not quite Eddie Lacy territory yet, but
not
getting
quite
there.
Lacy. Yeah, it's Laysonian. However, keeping in mind that he's going to be suspended these first 4 games. That brings that's going to, I think, cool the market for him in terms of waivers and what team might be interested in getting him, because you can't get him he's going to be gone for the first 4 games. But there are landing spots for him that could be helpful. Patriots would be one of them. How about the Dolphins that could really use some depth behind the always injured Arian Foster? I think there's going to be some places where it would make sense, and Carlos Williams has to have gotten the message here, right?
You would think so.
You get suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. I think it was performance-enhancing drugs. Might have been regular drugs, recreational. I don't remember. And then you let your weight go to 260. In fact, considering the weight gain, let's assume it was recreational drugs. Yeah. Okay. And you'd like to think he gets the message now.
And he was a good player last year. He averaged 5.6 yards per carry and
Yes.
scored 9 touchdowns. A really young guy, so he should be intriguing to a lot of teams, I would think. New England probably at the top of that list, because if there's anybody that can take a troubled player and get him back on the straight and narrow, it's Bill Belichick, and we've seen him do it with LeGarrette Blount, for example, the starter
Randy
there
Moss.
right now.
Yep.
I have reason to believe Carlos Williams is a more talented player than LeGarrette Blount. So
sure.
And a fellow AFC East player, where Belichick has done that in the past. He'll pick their brain
Wes
about
Welker.
game plans and stuff, and so that connect the dots, and maybe there's something there. I think Cleveland might make a little bit of sense. I don't know how happy they are with Isaiah Crowell running their early down work. Even Detroit.
So
Does Detroit do anything for you?
Well,
They need a goal line type guy, a
they
bigger
got
guy.
one in Zach Zenner.
Yeah.
So last pick of your draft, are you intrigued at all by free agent Carlos Williams and just see what happens?
I don't know.
Not
It's
so much. No.
so much uncertainty. I mean,
But that's why he's
260,
available. If
that's-
there was certainty, if if Belichick picked him up, or even the Dolphins picked him up, where I think he'd immediately become the number 2 if he dropped some weight.
Yeah.
Well, then everybody wants him. I mean, the reason you're taking him last is you can get him last is because of the uncertainty, right? But
I'd rather go. I
I
might rather draft Deion Lewis over Carlos Williams if I had to pick. I don't know, but
I'd
it's
take James White over him for sure.
Well, for sure, but he's on a roster. Yes, but James White's not going to be the last pick of your draft either.
Probably not anymore.
No, not anymore. No.
Well, going back to Buffalo, are you excited about Reggie Bush as the number 2 running back now?
Not
Are you
the slightest.
No, me neither. I like Mike Gillislee more than Reggie Bush personally.
Yeah,
if I'm
I
gonna handcuff Shady, I'm going Gillislee.
Yeah, it really solidifies LaShawn McCoy too. I mean, he's been kind of an afterthought, don't you think?
A little bit. I mean, he was. I think he was my number 11 running back, and
I bet you have him higher than. I bet his ADP is more like 14 or 15.
yeah,
I
I've got him
haven't
12.
had a chance to look it up.
I have him
but
12 right now. Here's my concern that I haven't heard anybody talk about all offseason with McCoy. He is not very good at the stripe, and there's a reason they brought in Carlos Williams. Carlos Williams scored on 100% of his carries inside the 5. Last year, McCoy scored on 17% of his carries inside the 5, and he was bad the previous couple of years with Philadelphia in that range as well. So I'm a little bit concerned about touchdown productivity for him, but maybe Gillislee could take over that role. Maybe doesn't.
What
won't
about
be Reggie
Tyrod
Bush.
Taylor? Does that open up more opportunities for
Taylor
him?
did not
that's
do
an interesting
anything. He
take.
didn't run him at all.
Yeah.
No,
up
inside the
close.
10. No.
Yeah, and he is small. He's smaller too, so I don't think that's going to change. It's not like Cam Newton, right? So I think I'm just pumping the brakes before we assume that all those Carlos Williams touchdowns automatically go to McCoy, because I don't know it'll be that way. A quick note about League Safe. You should consider using League Safe. If you've got a league with entry fees and you're tired of dealing with the hassles of cash and money and IOUs and promises, and you're Tired of having to knock on the door of your deadbeat buddies and texting them to pay up and everything else? We'll do all that for you. LeagueSafe only takes about 90 seconds to 2 minutes to set up. If your league has got everybody's got a bank account, it's totally free to put money into LeagueSafe, and multiple ways to get money out of LeagueSafe for free as well. And not only that, we return 100% of your league's entry fees back to your league. Also, if that weren't enough, you can use promo code FFAD, as in Fantasy Football Almost Daily, FFAD, and we'll throw $10 into your league's pot. Try LeagueSafe.com. All right, let's go on to topic number 3, which is Thomas Rawls. The quote that's being attributed here is that he's on track to being ready for the opener. Does this throw any cold water on the Christian Michael, rampaging bandwagon that's out there?
I hate this situation so much. It's such a headache. I mean, it has to, right? If Rawls is going to be ready to the opener, he's the starter still. As good as Michael's looked. I don't know. Jump in here, CP.
Let me frame it up this way. Are you targeting Rawls, who's got a 4th round ADP?
No.
Are you targeting Michael, who last I looked at a 12th round, but I think that's moving up like on a daily basis. You could probably assume it's closer to 8, 9, 10 right now.
Probably.
Or are you targeting both as a handcuff? So I'm going to give you 3 options here: Rawls, Michael, or both.
I would say both. If I was going to invest in this at all, I would try to get both, because I'm really worried about Rawls. And my answer initially, before you framed it up in the multiple choice, was I hope that other people start feeling more comfortable about Rawls because of this news, because I want them to draft him, and I think he's going to go belly up this year. So I hope that other people are feeling more comfortable by this news that he's going to be ready to start the opener, because I didn't like him in the first place, and that was before Christian Michael started looking like a really good player in the preseason. So
can I assume that's just based on injury? Because nothing we saw on
injury
the field last year suggested he would be a bust.
No, I still think it's such a limited sample size from what we saw last year. He had a couple of great games, and I won't deny that. But he was an undrafted guy, and the Seahawks spent a lot of capital in the offseason on young running back types. And they like to create a lot of competition, and I don't think they care what you did last year. I think if Christian Michael looks like the better runner, he's going to be on the field, and I think there's a chance that he is.
Well,
do you have to draft Alex Collins too if you're getting those guys? I feel like if you have Rawls and Michael,
I
don't know.
I think you have to go 3 deep on the depth chart.
Probably not, but you never know. I mean, it's such a dicey situation there.
My comeback to your 2 key points here are this: 1, the sample size wasn't that small because Marshawn Lynch was hurt for almost the whole year. And there were a few games where Lynch had more carries.
Yeah, but then Rawls was hurt for part of the year too.
Then he finished the game hurt. He finished the year hurt, but he had a lot more carries than Lynch did over the season, and frankly looked better than Lynch did running in the same offense. Second is, who cares that he was an undrafted free agent? That's what the Seahawks do, is turn undrafted free agents into star players. So they don't care about the fact that he was undrafted, and they are better than most at turning it around. Here's my preferred strategy: auction, throw out Michael first. See if you can get Michael for 4%, 5%. Now you've got him cheap. Now, when Rawls comes up, let's see what the price is. If the price is good, I'm getting in that handcuff. Mm-hmm. And if it's not good, then okay, I'll just happily sit on Michael and just watch from the sidelines and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't mind the strategy unless you end up paying $5 or $6 for Michael. Then that's a lot. If you can get him for 2 or 3. I don't think I don't mind it.
I don't think guys who typically go in like the 8th round, 9th round are $2 and $3 guys.
So what would you be willing to pay for the combo? So you got Michael for $6. All
right. I mean, that's the high end of what I'd pay, but okay.
So how high do you go on Rawls?
So now I'm hoping I can get Rawls in the 15, 16, 18% range.
So you might pay up to $22, $23 for.
Considering we have a long history of whoever runs the ball for that team is a workhorse back and a damn good fantasy producer. I might be willing to do that.
People are going to bid up Rawls though on you if you have gotten Michael.
They should.
That gives you the opportunity.
If they're smart, they will.
Sometimes, sometimes that happens in auctions, and a lot of times it doesn't.
They may not want to get stuck with them, right? Because they don't have the handcuff.
Right.
So that's the other side.
Right. Of it. There might be enough worry out there where you only have to pay 12% to get Rawls, and that's even more compelling. All right, final subject here. Ronnie Hillman looks like he may not make the team. He hasn't looked good in preseason. Reports out of Denver say that he's a bubble guy altogether. He was already buried on my cheat sheet, and actually I don't even want to talk about Hillman, But more than anything else, does this change your outlook for Devontae Booker, the rookie that they've brought in?
Can I give you one Hillman stat from last year?
Please.
Average negative .22 yards per carry inside the 5-yard line on 9 carries. Yeah.
And had the 7th most runs in the NFL inside the 5-yard line. They were inexplicably using him as their goal line back.
And he wasn't good. But you know what? Actually, C.J. Anderson struggled inside the 5 too.
He did.
I mean, it was really a lot of it was a product of a bad offensive line that didn't start to come together until very late in the season, and now they've shuffled that offensive line again. So that's going to be tricky for the Denver
guess
Broncos.
This news doesn't change much for me. I was already assuming Booker was the top backup to C.J. Anderson there, and he clearly is now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this changes much. I wasn't assuming that Hillman and Booker were going to split whatever was left over after C.J. Anderson. So
Booker sounds like he's clearly the second guy now, according to reports out of there. So
watching Booker play, I haven't seen anything that's really blown me
he's
away
been just
yet.
okay in the preseason.
Just okay. Yeah. So I'd like to see more from him, but the opportunity, I feel like he's got a lot more opportunity for growth and upside than what Hillman's got left at this point. But here's where Hillman could get interesting. To go back to our earlier discussion, he gets cut, ends up on the Patriots.
Right. Yeah.
All right, now I'm interested. So, before you just outright drop Hillman, if you can hang on through 53-man cuts, let's see
There's
where he ends up.
There's a little Deion Lewis in him too.
There is
right?
a little bit there. He can pass catch.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he doesn't find his way onto the Patriots or some other team and have a meaningful role.
is Booker a must handcuff for C.J. Anderson owners? Going back to Denver really quick now.
I don't think
no?
so.
Even if you can get him super late.
I need to have a deep roster and get him late for me. I don't feel I haven't seen enough from Booker, and I don't know if the opportunity is so great. Like an Alfred Morris, limited talent but great opportunity. To me, that's the kind of handcuff that I go out of my way to get.
And again, with Alfred Morris, you're handcuffing a guy in Ezekiel Elliott who you had to spend a first rounder on. And C.J. Anderson is probably a third, fourth rounder at this point. So you don't have as much invested in him, so I don't think it's as important to carry the
unless he's your first running back. If he's your actual starter, RB1, then you might want to reconsider that.
He had a nice touchdown over the weekend. Anderson did. And I'm trying to get my arms around where he, what's the I guess available outcomes for him over the course of the season. If he gets 70% of the work, which he might, there's a real chance C.J. Anderson might get that much. They paid him to get that much.
I mean, the downside is what we saw the last 2 years, which is they messed around all year trying to get other backs in there, and they always they came back to C.J. Anderson because he was the best runner on the team, and he put up decent numbers despite not getting the number of carries that he probably deserved and that you would hope he would get. So I would hope after 2 years of that they've figured it out that he's the guy that they should go with, and that I actually kind of like C.J. Anderson for that reason this year. I think they have figured it out, and they're going to give him the ball as often as they should.
Well, yeah, they're going to want to run the ball like 30 times a game at least in Denver.
With those quarterbacks,
with Sanchez and Simeon. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, thank you for making it to the end of a kind of a longer video podcast for Fantasy Football Almost Daily. If you're looking for a league, try safeleagues.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter for some fantasy football chatter, at CoolerHeads29. Yep. I'll get that in my head one of these days. Why 29?
It's a long story.
CoolerHeads29 at BTXJ at Paul Charchian. We'll see you next time.